I've heard it often said, sometimes when speaking about salvation, that it's about our relationship with Jesus. And I think sometimes the unsaid implication is, in order to be saved, you have to have a certain undefined quantity of relationship with God. There's two ways we can use the word relationship. In a legal sense, we're related to Jesus as adopted sons of God because we have put our faith in Him. Our relationship is secure and complete. Salvation comes from faith alone, in Christ alone. And to be sure, Jesus knows who belongs to Him. The other way the word relationship is used would more aptly be described as fellowship. To not just be related to another, but to spend time with them, to know them, and be known. In this context, it's about our life in Christ as an already saved person, regardless of how much or little fellowship is present in our lives. If someone wants to suggest that we're saved by having a certain ambiguous amount of ongoing fellowship with God, that's contrary to the gospel. But that's not to say it's not important to have fellowship with God. It most certainly is. And so the question is, how do we have fellowship with God? Hebrews 11:6. But without faith it is impossible to please Him, for he that cometh to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of them that diligently seek Him. We have fellowship with God through faith, our faith in the finished work of Christ, having full assurance of our salvation first of all, and from there, believing the things God tells us are true of us in Christ, having faith in our identity in Christ, our faith in our inheritance in Christ, receiving every good thing that God has prepared for us. I know some are just waiting until they're in heaven to receive from God, but I believe it is good and appropriate to have faith for our inheritance in Christ right now. It is true that we'll come into it fully when we're glorified, but faith comes first, and even now, for every good thing God does, we can be thankful. And to be sure, God will do a good work in us. It's God that does that work through His power, and it's not a metaphor for our self-struggle. So I would suggest that it is this seeking God in faith that is the basis for our fellowship with God. And when you seek God through faith, your knowledge of God increases, being sure of His good nature towards you, that He is always on your side, comforting you, training you, fighting for you and with you. Hopefully, you can come to see that in Christ, we always have fellowship with God. Any suggestion to the contrary is really an illusion that's apart from faith. With this mindset, we can live in faith, even while engaged in the ordinary things of life. We're mindful God is with us in each moment, that there's never a time that we're disconnected. We know that God is not punishing us for our shortcomings, because Jesus already took that punishment on Himself, and it's finished. Being fully reconciled to God, there's no reason to be fearful or doubtful. Fear and doubt are the antagonizers of faith. Having a fear of the Lord is something different. This is a respect for God, for His awesomeness, to respect who He is and what He has accomplished, and not to take it lightly, but with reverence in all seriousness, to be mindful of this, to know that God is just and that He is a righteous judge. For the unbeliever, to know judgment is coming and that they fall short. For the believer, to know that they are only justified because Jesus has made them so, by faith through His blood, through His finished work on the cross. Dear Lord, guide us and lead us, and be ever present in our mind, wherever we go, and whatever we do.